So once again, I welcome you all to this online webinar on significance of design thinking in insurance. So myself, Dr. Rakesh Agrawal, Secretary General, Risk Management Association of India. So we welcome Professor Pratik Priyadarshi, who agreed to present a session on this unique subject on design thinking. Still, the topic, the idea of design thinking is evolving in insurance, and I hope with more sessions like this, it will gain more importance. So I can see a lot of members are from our association only. Still, at the cost of repetition, I'll just quickly go through uh, about our association, what we are doing. So our members would be knowing RMI is a global body dedicated to insurance research and education. So basically, the idea of this platform was to create a common platform for risk professionals, insurers, bankers, corporates, and to exchange views and explore new avenues, engage and collaborate among the professionals. So our activities include conducting these online webinars, then seminar, training courses on risk management, then physical sessions on risk management. Then we publish a quarterly bulletin on risk management. We did a lot of seminars over the last few years. So we have a YouTube channel where we have recording of all the webinars. So these are some of our partners who are associated with us. So we are trying to extend our reach across the SAARC countries and Europe and other countries also, including Middle East. So basically, we have a 30 hours online certificate course on risk management. And this is a 4-month course. And we have enrollment, I think, from more than 7 countries in this course. And this course is quite effective to gain a practical insight about risk management. Again, we have number of other courses also. We have a course on credit risk management, then course on AI, and course on motor insurance, health insurance. And we are planning number of courses which should be launched soon. Is a list of our governing council members, advisory members, our industry experts. And we have an academic council also. So there we have, and Professor Pratik is also a member of our academic council. Apart from this, these are some of our associates, the Insurance Times, the first journal on insurance in India. Then we have Banking Finance, again, which is a journal dedicated to banking and finance industry. Then we have 2 portals on insurance and banking. And very soon we are relaunching this BimaBazaar.com. So here we plan to make it as a repository on insurance information, not only covering India, but overall aspect of insurance around the world. So I'd request everyone to engage with this portal, and we have built a community here also. So if anybody has any query, if consumer has any query or any intermediary has any query, they can post it there in the discussion forum. And from there, we will invite experts to reply. So basically, the site would cover latest news, discussion forum, interviews from all stakeholders, maybe insurance companies, intermediaries and all, and a special section on consumer awareness, the latest article features. And our today's speaker, Mr. Professor Pratik Priyadarshi, he's our academic council member also, and currently he's holding position as chairperson of Insurance and Business Risk Management Program, BIMTech, and also he's the associate professor. So Mr. Pratik has a long experience of more than 30 years in various positions in underwriting, product development, business development, with a post-graduation from Delhi University and PGTM. So he has been actively involved in consultancy, training, advisory functions. He has been a moderator, panelist, and participants in many national and international seminars. So welcome, Professor Priyadarshi. So would request you now to take the session ahead. And at the end, we will be having a Q&A session. So if anybody has a question, you can note it down. We can discuss in the end.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, where do I begin? Yeah. Sir, can I just move on to sharing my screen so
Sure,
that
sure.
we can
Please,
start?
please share. Hmm.
I think there we are. Right, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon to you, and honor and privilege to be here. I'm grateful to RMI and in particular to Mr. Rakesh Agarwalji for having given this opportunity to have this interaction with such an august gathering and audience. See, coming straight to the point, what happens is that many a times there are issues, there are topics, there are specific points on which we'd prefer someone else coming and telling us rather than me going to you and asking a question. This particular topic is somewhat similar like that, design thinking. Almost each and every one here, all of us have heard about design thinking. Now, it's just a question of using the particular ingredient to make a proper meal for us. Meaning, thereby, that if I am from the insurance domain, I could utilize design thinking in a specific manner to suit my requirements. Fact of the matter is that this particular concept has been in news for the last probably uh, 7 years, 8 years, at least in India. One of my colleagues was teaching design thinking to people in Western Europe about 9 years back. The point is that this is an important aspect that we need to discuss, and more so why? Because we are evolving and growing. Now, just have a look at this particular slide. What do you see? I have three particular photographs here. On the left of your screen is an area where you will see the weapons, the tools that the primitive people used. There is a slow and gradual improvement when fire was discovered. Just below that is the invention of the wheels. Look at the point where stones were being pushed for the pyramids, they were pulled, and then of course now we are at a stage where nobody else has to invent the wheel again. Now, the point that I'm trying to make is there, how did we evolve? Did we innovate, or did we go straight to design thinking as such? And that is exactly what we'll have a discussion on here today. You see, any such discussion, how could we even forget that there would be someone like Steve Jobs, and he was very clear, and honestly speaking, thanks to my colleague, Dr. Nisha Bamel, she's here for this session. I was having a discussion with her because she also teaches this paper. And this particular slide was the first one that she had in her presentation. It's absolutely simple. It says, design is not just what it looks like and feels like. Design is how it works. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it is no more a design or a design thinking process. There's no doubt about it. So let's start with design thinking per se, and then you'll realize that what is it all about? It's about users, the clients, the customers, the stakeholders, meaning thereby people. This is all about people. And as our good friend J.K. Rowling would have said, what is life without a little risk? Because all these stakeholders, all these customers, all these people, they have taken a chance. And when we say a risk, see, at the end of the day, the statement that the cliched statement is there, like invention is the mother of necessity, that kind of thing, and a ship is safe in the harbor, but that is not what a ship was built for. We are aware of these cliched statements, but the fact remains that when people go in for a change, they are taking a risk. And that is what risk management is all about. And therefore, when we talk about the design thinking, we say it is thinking out of the box. I'm not sure. Most of us are from the insurance background, and we would have heard that the IRDAI had come out with the concept of a sandbox approach. Now, when I say sandbox approach, I am talking about a controlled situation wherein you were permitted to make certain permutation combinations, come out with new products, minimizing the risks. Because at the end of the day, any change involves a risk, and design thinking is a major change that we're talking about. So, what exactly is this challenge that we're talking about? As the name suggests, it's basically a problem solving approach that involves empathizing with the user, defining the problem, ideating potential solutions, prototyping, and testing the solutions. Now, if you remember your days from school and college, you would realize that when we were solving these challenges, the questions, the problems, the theorems, we used to identify the problem first. And almost every one of us knows that until unless you identify a problem, you cannot go in for a solution. Technically speaking, I would not consider design thinking to be something out of the box for this generation. Design thinking was always there, except that we did not know the name design thinking. When we talk about the Neanderthal man, the primitive man, and if I could take you back to the previous slide, I'll just tell you. Yeah, the evolution of the weaponry that is seen there, how we discovered fire, all these things were slow and gradual process. And these slow and gradual process was there at that time also. Of course, they did not know that we could consider it to be a modification, a process towards design change. What I'm simply saying is that there were stages, there were people who worked on this such kind of a proposition without giving it a nomenclature like a design thinking. So first and foremost, let's accept that there were people amongst us who always thought out of the box. And we have n number of examples. If you could go through any of the uh, historical figures, let's talk about Achilles. When Achilles took the Greeks, on that battlefield, he had a strategy. He thought out of the box when he talked about the wooden horse, the Trojan horse. Now, that was literally thinking out of the box. Can we say that he had this process of design thinking in his mind at that time? Yes, we can, except that we did not name it design thinking. See, so basically the idea is that there are certain specific matters, specific subject issues which are already there, which were modeled and chiseled out in such a manner to suit the requirement of the current uh, scenarios. Therefore, it was only in the late 1960s that a gentleman at the Stanford University, Rolf Paste, he was the one who actually sort of put it in the same can. I identified it as design thinking, and then of course an organization called IDEO, which was a design and consulting firm, they popularized it. Hence, to quote the IDEO design and consulting firm, design thinking is a human-centered approach. Now, if you notice, we've been talking about the humans involved in it, whether it is the Neanderthal man or the primitive man talking about his tools and weapons, or we're talking about the concept developed by Rolf Faste. It is a human-centered approach that places the user at the center of the design process. So, when we talk about the definition per se, now, hang on. Before I go to the definition per se, remember we talked about the sandbox approach. not many of us are actually aware of the sandbox approach because we have not got an opportunity to use it. And till such time one uses or actually puts into practice these things, it's difficult for us to visualize and talk about it. But I'm sure you people have gone through the COVID situation. Remember the COVID period? Everyone was confined to their homes, Now, that was the time when n number of people came with innovations, came with disruptions. Now, these are the terminologies that we have been using to say that people were thinking out of the box. Somebody started to have an online session on music. Somebody came out with a concept of having a localized center for games, particularly chess. Somebody started shooting videos and movies. Now, that was also a kind of a sandbox approach because the situation was under our control. We could control the risk factor involved in it. Now, that I'm sure almost each one of us has gone through. So that is another situation where we can say that design thinking was actually in vogue at that time. So it is actually extremely user-centric, and it focuses on its users before we talk about things like business metrics and technology. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. I'm more than sure that almost each one of us sitting here at this stage has seen this particular diagram. This has been taken from the public domain, and what I've added to it is the different phases, because certain terminologies are used by a specific group of people. Some others use it another way. So when I say that when you begin actually looking at a problem, something is there, and you need to work on it, you start your research. Some might say, no, I would start by observing people and noting down things. Somebody might say, okay, let me empathize with these people. Fact of the matter is that the phase one that we are talking about involves all these three activities intertwined. End of the day, result is whether it is research, you observe, or empathize. Fact is that you are getting into the skin of the things. You must know what it is. And then, of course, the phase two, again, different terminologies. Some would say we analyze it. Some would say we understand it. Some would like to define it. But what have been doing, even if we have used all these three different terminologies, we have come to a situation where we actually understand the problem. So I get into the situation, I get to know what it is, then I understand it. Then comes the phase three, where I say I actually ideate. I work on the ideas, alternate solutions, or I create a solution. The three different terminologies used actually point to one specific thing, and which is the phase three. Then, of course, you have the phase four and phase five, and we'll talk about all these specific phases in details when we come to the next slide, And this is visually, it will appeal more to you because when we're talking about phase one, phase two, phase three, it sounds like we are talking about kindergarten, then you have a class one and a class two and a class three. No, the fact of the matter is that empathizing is for learning about the audience for whom you are going to design, for whom you're going to work out a solution. And when we said define, this stage or this phase talks about constructing a point of view that is based on user needs and insights. Now, most of us sitting here have one time or the other worked in the marketing arena or a corporate office, corporate house, corporate world, so as to say. The first thing that we say is that customer, consumer, or a client is the God. There's no doubt about it because he or she is the basis why we are here. And if we say so, then what happens is the fact that we need to know the mind of the consumer. We need to get into his head to know what exactly he or she needs. Else, my existence is at stake. If I do not know the needs or the requirements of the customer, how do you think I'll come out with a product to cater to his or her requirements? Therefore, I come out to the third phase, which is ideate, brainstorming, and coming up with creative solutions. Now, that is not the end of it, because at the end of the brainstorming session, you have certain solutions, and then you would like to try it out whether or not it is successful. So you do not go and build the whole chain. You just build a prototype. You build a representation of one or more of your ideas, and then you get it checked, confirmed, or cleared by somebody else, and others, so that okay, fine, this is there, it is working. It's a prototype. Last but not the least, we go in for tests. We go in, for instance, if a software is built, we ask our own staff members, our own people, to go in for a check, put in as many queries, put in as many questions, route it through different situations, and see how it functions. Some of us might say there could be a sixth stage also after the test, and that could be putting the entire design thinking process into a commercial situation. So large scale production of things going on. That's absolutely in order, and that could probably be the next phase of testing, I'll say. But then the question comes is, how do you go about it? I mean, you cannot work without the tools. You saw the slide one, where we talked about the different tools these primitive people have, the Neanderthals had, and of course the tools were to be modified depending upon the needs and requirements of those people. It is done today also. So, for instance, when we talk about the phase one, when you're talking about the identification of the problem, we use sessions like brainstorming, mind mapping, affinity mapping, SWOT analysis. You know, these are nothing but tools that we use for design thinking. Now, had it been a situation where we were talking to students of IBM program at BIMTech, or maybe even at NIA Pune or IIRM, I would have had to go into the details of what exactly is a brainstorming or a mind mapping tool, because it's difficult for a fresher to actually know what exactly are the steps or the different uh, methodologies involved in these such tools that we have. For a student of management, a SWOT analysis or even a Casper analysis is not a difficult situation. Why? Because they have been taught that way. But when it actually comes to the others, there's slight difference. So phase one has tools like brainstorming, like I said. Phase two is more about activity mapping, space-time mapping, life cycle mapping. Now, life cycle mapping, more about marketing, retail kind of a management situation where you talk about, let's say, you map the life cycle of a FMCG product. Then you also come to the concept of a journey mapping. So basically, the idea is that we have tried to put in as many tools as we could to cater to the specific requirement of that particular analysis. So phase three, again, like I was telling you, brainstorming is there, Scamper is there, of course, Synaptics, removing mental blocks, paper prototype is the phase four. Now, of course, with 3D modeling, things have become very, very easy, and we use hi-fi prototypes as well. My emphasis on the tools was to ensure that we talk about a situation called the IQ. Historically, like I've mentioned here, the insurance industry has always been policy focused, driven by analytics. You know, this is the number of policy used, issued. So many policies had claims in it. This was the premium charge. This was the total GWP, total claims paid, agency commission. Therefore, we need to modify the premium structure. Typically, so when we talk about the different tools coming into use, and then we have a product, and then this is the intelligent quotient. However, now there has been a minor modification. When we say that if it is intelligent quotient, then we are also talking about the emotional quotient. I'm sure most of us are aware of the concept of an emotional quotient, and particularly in the insurance context, when we say that in order to deliver value, we need to understand what makes people tick. Sounds very good, but come on, hang on. This is exactly the philosophy on which the entire economy works. The entire marketing or sales or distribution team works on the same thing. You must know what the client needs. Only then can you actually prepare the products or the services that they need it. So, how people do things and why. physical and emotional needs. Somebody might start his day at 8 o'clock having a cup of coffee. Others might prefer tea. Now, the question is, you and I have to work out as to why this fellow needs a coffee at 8, why somebody else needs tea, why somebody else needs an idli or maybe an omelette in the morning, how they think about the world and what is meaningful to them. I personally believe that if you have to be working in an arena like design thinking, a little bit of a psychology knowledge or maybe human resource management could be a better help to you in that situation. So, at its core, it's a framework for problem solving. Let's come to the hard facts. This is what it is. So, the focus is on empathy and immersion. And of course, you tap into the beginner's mindset. You generate and test lots of ideas. And of course, you take a risk there, isn't it? Like our good friend Rowling, J.K. Rowling was talking about, I mean, there has to be an element of risk, and you have to take a little bit of a risk. You could fail, not an issue at all. Why? Because it's only people who tried that have failed. People who have not tried, I mean, how could they fail even if they have not tried? Then, of course, you solve multifaceted problems, you satisfy complex needs. Now, this is an area where you'd actually feel a lot of satisfaction coming into you. Why? Because you realize that there are certain people whose specific needs have been taken care of, and only because you ventured or you intervened. And last but not the least, you uncover unmet customer needs to reveal untapped opportunities. One of the new ideas that has been coming up of late is the concept of a space travel insurance. And we've already had a few inquiries about it. We are talking about it. And then, of course, the concept of a drone insurance is also there. Now, these were the areas which were untapped 5 years back. And yet, we are trying to uncover these unmet customer needs because there are n number of opportunities which are still to be tapped. I'm sure some of you would like to work on this, the concept of a drone insurance or even for the space insurance where people are now more frequently traveling into space. So the example that I gave you is more to take care of the fact that these things are there in black and white. It's no more a concept that is in my head alone. There are not many people working on it. And of course, like I said, when particularly for insurance, and I would not demean the other business concepts by saying that no, it is not true. The fact is, it is true for almost all kind of activities. But the focus that we have today is more about insurance, and therefore, repeatedly, I'm using the word insurance. And I say, putting the customer in the core is the most important thing that we have. Since time immemorial, that's not an issue at all. So, what do we have actually? The old paradigms are still there. Of course, the customer needs have evolved, right from the primitive man or the Neanderthal man using a pickaxe to today we are using a sniper rifle or even a nuclear missile. So the customer needs have increased. People are becoming more aware of what all they can do, what all they can actually achieve. However, this is the point of concern where that the insurance industry needs to shift its focus. Why? Because the old paradigms and the evolving customer needs are not in sync with what the insurance company was doing, what at least till about 10 years back. Even today, I would say that we have just done about 40 to 50% of what these new changes and new expectations are there. Why? Because they lack progress and the poor customer satisfaction is there. I still remember sometime in the mid 90s, I was a branch manager with one of the PSUs. I was with United India Insurance, and I was at a district headquarter. And one of the guys came to me and said, "Sir, coming to your office, I would need another pair of shoes in the next 3 months' time." Why? Because I have to come to the office almost every day just to get the news that no, your file is not ready. Now, it's difficult for a customer to understand it. So, what is the concept of file being ready? I mean, a loss is a loss is a loss. A claim is a claim is a claim. You have to process it as per the policy terms and conditions and make the payment. I'm not getting into the ethics and morality of things as such. Having said that, fact is that today we have come a long way since then. Yet we are not there. Like I said, almost 40 to 50% of the expectation levels of the client have been met. but still we need to work more. That is why it has been founded, this concept is founded in the principle that good design and innovation starts with the real life human problems and needs. You and I need to get into the head of the client. You and I need to actually converse and get into a conversation with him to understand what exactly he or she is talking about. See, this is one of the things that we talk about when we say uh, leadership skills are there. We say, okay, so and so insurance company is doing very well. Why? And we remember the name of the CEO or the MD. Why? Because that fellow is a good leader. When I say good leader, he's got his ears to the ground, because the real human life problems and needs come from the ground. And that is what makes a good leader being distinguished from the other leaders that are available in the market. Right. So the moot question: how does design thinking help insurance? Um, User-centered approach, innovation and creativity, improved customer experience. Now, you see, these are just some of the ways and means wherein the design thinking process has helped insurers. And we have a number of examples when it actually comes to user-centered approach. A long time back, when I was working with one of the private sector companies, a very important client of us had a group health insurance policy. And that was the time when the government was also thinking in terms of uh, ensuring that the line-wise business was making its presence felt, because we used to subsidize the health insurance with the other lines of business. So let's say health insurance premium was 50,000 rupees and the other premium was 50,000. The loss ratio for health was 100%, meaning thereby 1 lakh losses gone. We would say, no, 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 no. The other 50,000 added up, loss ratio is okay, just we are just there, that kind of thing. Now, that was the time when the government started going against this thought process. They said, no, nothing doing. You must have a line-wise business proposition, and that each LOB should be a profit center. I still remember that particular case because this client was very important to us, and the CEO of that company had a addition in his health insurance policy by way of his mother-in-law being added to the policy. The broker on record sent us the information. However, for whatever reason, that information was not received by the insurance company. And 3 months down the line, that particular lady had a fall in the bathroom, and a claim was preferred on the insurance company. And like a very good insurer, we immediately got into the act and said, no, sorry, gone. This communication was not there with us, and it was not covered. The response of the insurance company was absolutely in order, because we were not covering the risk. And if the risk is not being covered, where is the question of making a payment for a claim? However, I still remember, and the particular broker, of course, the world is small, and today all of us are very good friends. But what I'm talking about is almost 25 years back. Oh, no, not 25, it's 22. 2024. Yeah, it's almost 22 to 23 years back. And that broker said, boss, if you don't make the payment of the loss, we will have to do it. There's not much option for us, because this client is too important for us to miss out. And that was the time, when we thought about the client. All this while we were talking about the process, the systems, how the communication is being sent. All this time, nobody thought once also as to who or what exactly was the client problem or challenge that he was facing. So for the first time, actually, with the broker, we sat down and said, okay, what or who is this client? Of course, if I were to use a cliched statement, I would use the rest, as they say, is history. But the fact is that we had a discussion with the client, the broker, and the insurance company, and we had a threadbare discussion wherein we explained that, look, you are not at fault. It's either the broker or the insurance company, because the brokers confirmed that they sent a communication, the insurance company did not receive it. Now, of course, at a later date, we realized that the advance premium deposit that the client has had with us at that time was more than what the claim was all about. So, of course, it was a post-loss endorsement, and we were able to make good the loss for that client. Needless to mention, I was there with that organization for the next 3 years. The client did not move out from us, and neither did he change the broker. Now, honestly speaking, if I were to say that this was a marketing technique, you would all agree with me. Fact is, during that entire process, for the first time, we went in for a user-centered approach. We actually discussed the need and preference of that user that we had, and of course, it was a post facto thing, but we were able to utilize this concept when we talked about the future clients. We had a session, a 2-hour session, wherein my MD was in a position to cite this particular case and talk about it to a group of intermediaries and marketing personnel that we had in that company. So, of course, we did not know that this was a part of design thinking at that stage. All that we had thought at that time was that we were talking about a marketing strategy. Remember, so what I'm trying to tell you is that we don't have to use the cliched terms to say that this is what it is. The process may have been used by some other term also at some other time. Then, of course, we talk about innovation and creativity. You innovate, you create. I still remember the Insurance Act has a provision that in case of health insurance policies, if the client is unable to pay the premium in a single installment, provision can be made that he pays it in 2 or 3 installments. And there are ways and methods of doing it. Now, the Insurance Act is there for almost a century now, 1938. How many of us have actually availed of this installment facility? For the simple reason that if, number one, people are not aware of it, they will not ask for it. Number two, it leads to increase in usage of paper, putting in an email, putting in a process in place, systems must be there. And most importantly, why create a situation of postponing the income that is coming your way? However, with the coming of the private sector, someone somewhere from a government sector moved on to that position and used this particular point to increase the sales of his health insurance policies. It was already there, waiting to be used, and somebody innovated, used his or her creativity. And of course, now most of the group health policies, they avail of this facility wherein they pay the premium in installments. It helps the client also, because giving out a lump sum, big amount at one time may create a problem for the client. But of course, with the benefit of an installment, it's easy for the client to also plan out his financial requirements. Third point was the improved customer experience. Now, tell me something. The above two examples that I was talking about, what do you think would be the reaction of the customer at that stage? Would he feel extremely happy? No, he may not feel extremely happy, but he would feel satisfied. Okay, fine, yeah, you bungled up, you did this, you did that. However, at the end of the day, you paid my claims. Fine, that's how it is. But if we were to proactively work on these user-centered approach, innovation and creativity, then of course the customer experience improves. Then he or she knows that this is not a flash in the pan. The idea is that this is how these insurance companies or the insurers, they work. How many, okay, forget about other things. As on date, how many people do you think would be requiring space insurance policies? Maybe 100, maybe 500, maybe 1,000. But do you think it's economically viable for an insurance company to issue just 100 policies to begin with? No, it is not. But the fact is that if you can provide that policy to that needy customer, you won him for his life. He will be your brand ambassador, even though you don't have to pay a single rupee to him, because he feels that you've added value to his proposition. And that is where the improvement in the customer experience comes into being. Of course, being agile and flexible, particularly the insurance companies in India, they have been catering to the requirement of the weather-based index insurance, the crop insurance that we have, or even in cases of natural calamities, the climate change. So there are insurance companies based their entire thought process on design thinking. They are agile. They are flexible to make changes to the existing policy. They are in a situation where they can actually work out and have a new policy in place ASAP. Why should they be doing this? Because they wanted to respond quickly to the changing market conditions and customer needs. They wanted to be there when the problem happened along with a policy copy. Now, these are small things for an organization which is catering to the requirements of 10 crores or 20 crores of people, because that's the client base that almost each insurance company has today. But the fact remains that if you are there, they remember you. Uh, I do not know how many of you all are aware of a situation. This was just before the uh, breakup of the USSR. Somewhere, I don't remember exactly the country, but one of the USSR countries was there, where there was this gentleman, a traveling salesman, 1988 or 19, I think 1988 was the year, and he was a traveling salesman. So every morning he used to go out for work, travel 3-4 hours, then again come back in the night, and he was very attached to his son. The son was a student of class fifth or sixth, and every time the son would come back, says, "Dad, I need this. Dad, I need that." And the fellow said, "Don't worry, I'm there. If at all you have an issue, if you have a problem, I'll be there." So one fine morning, this traveling salesman went off to his workplace, about 3-4 hours away, and an earthquake hit the place where he used to stay. The epicenter of that earthquake was the school where his son was going. The entire school went down. Now, by the time this fellow got the information, he was already 3 hours away. So he changed the entire thing, started coming back, and it was almost 6 hours before he came back to his hometown. And typically, whenever a disaster or natural calamity happens, we have all the response teams working. So when this fellow was coming in, initially he was met by the local police. They said, "No, no, you cannot go there. Why? Because a lot of activity is going on. We are trying to rescue people, save lives, all that stuff." And this poor fellow, he cried. He said, "Look, I am the father of one of the child who's there, stuck there, and I had promised him that I would be there in his times of crisis. I must go. Please help me." So similarly, then they let him go. Then he went to the next stage. There were paramilitary people. Then he went to the third. This national disaster relief fund relief people were there. So by the time he reached the actual spot of that earthquake, it was already midnight. More than 16 hours had elapsed, and they said that there's hardly any scope or probability or a possibility that somebody could be alive. And this poor fellow, he started digging with his bare hands, and he was shouting, "Son, are you there? Son, are you there?" People started sympathizing with him. "Oh my God, poor father, we are feeling so bad about it." That was the kind of reaction that people started coming out with. And after 2-3 hours, the others started withdrawing. They started picking up their tools and making a move. When suddenly there was a thin voice from down below, "Dad, I'm here." Imagine the kind of electrifying experience the people must have had when this sound came out. So this fellow said, "Son, are you all right?" He says, "Dad, I am okay, and I have 21 others with me whom I had told that my dad will not abandon us." Now, you see, this is a real life incident, but there are a lot of lessons that come out for people like us, for you and me in the insurance sector. If you stand by your client in the times of his crisis, and for us, crisis is a claim or a claim like situation, do you think he'll abandon you anytime in the life? No way. The moment you stand with him for his claim and his claim like experiences, you won him for his life. Now, so that is the basic idea when we say collaboration and teamwork is there. All of us come from different perspectives, different expertise, but we are there at the time of the crisis. At the end of the day, the proof of the pudding is in eating it. And for us in an insurance company, the pudding that we're talking about is the claim. So all these things, they add up to what we call an electrifying experience for the customer. And this is exactly how the the entire design thinking process works for customer. People who've been following the regulations of the IRDA, you would know that the last, what should I say, about 3 years or 4 years, we have had a strong, very strong emphasis on increasing the penetration of the insurance across the country. To put it into layman's language, let me put it this way, that we would want more people to get involved or be covered by the insurance policies. And the government has come out with a proposition called Insurance for All by 2047. That would be the time when we would be celebrating 100 years of our independence as such. A wonderful idea. I mean, and we are all for it, except that the modalities, the methods, the way these things have to go about will have to be worked out very carefully. Like I said, remember, the insurance penetration is based across the country. Some of us are better prepared to receive it. Some of us may not be prepared to receive it. For all you know, I don't even know what is the meaning of term insurance. Therefore, we need to spread the word, and the present generation leverage digital channels to reach potential customers. Social media, digital advertising, other online tools. My colleague and good friend Professor Manoj Pandey is one of the strong advocates of usage of social media, digital advertising, and online tools to let people know that these things are available for you to use. Of course, we have arguments with him when we say, no, not everyone uses social media. And he will just smile and say, Are boss, dekho to sahi, that kind of thing. The fact of the matter is that even if we were to reach 50% of these people through social media, digital advertising, our job is done. You have arrived, because the way communication happens, talk of word of mouth is there, of course. No, forget about social media. People sitting in the same house in 3 different rooms communicate with each other over WhatsApp, over Instagram, and number of things. I'm not very familiar with all those different channels, of course, but the fact is that yes, I'm aware of social media. Now, the government of India has a provision wherein say they have an organization called CSC, Customer Servicing Centers. It's kind of an internet kiosk. This is placed in almost each and every village across the country, wherein particularly the farmers, they can approach that unit. You have a machine there where you get to know the latest about weather, the latest about your crop, the purchase, the sale, all those things already there. Why cannot we leverage on that? So the point that I'm trying to make is that a lot of activity is already being done. We need to capitalize on it. And of course, through the entire process of design thinking, which is all about, ideating and innovating kind of thing, we can increase the penetration of insurance. Now, these are case studies that I'm quoting to you. And this, for instance, AXA has created a global innovation program called AXA Next. We are lucky, particularly people at BIMTech are lucky because AXA Climate in India is headed by one of my alumni members, Pankaj Tomar. The head of AXA Climate in London, Ankush Bharadwaj, then again an alumni and an Indian. Now, when we have been doing so much for, particularly for the climate change experience, I mean, you and I need to work on it. We should support these things. And AXA has been doing that. So they have a program called AXA Next, which uses design thinking to identify and address customer pain points. A case in study is when they enhanced auto insurance claims. And I'm giving you the way it has happened. The challenge was that to improve its auto insurance claims process, which was often seen as cumbersome and slow by customers. How did they approach the subject? Workshops involving various stakeholders, customers, frontline employees, claims customers, adjusters, etc. Solution and the impact. Now, this is exactly how a professional body moves. This is one of the aspects that I'm talking about, enhancing auto insurance claims. I told you they were also working on climate change. The next example is from Swiss Re, another giant of insurance in the globe. And they were talking about automating underwriting. The challenge was that they wanted to improve the efficiency and accuracy of the underwriting process. How they approached it? Redesigned the underwriting journey by involving underwriters. Now, please remember, we talked about the involvement of the people, the stakeholders. This is all about people-centric activities they're talking about. It has to be for the people, by the people, of the people. And like I said, a little bit of a psychology knowledge or knowledge about HRM would be an advantage or an asset in entire this process that you can have. And let's not forget the use of technology. I have a lot of limitations as far as technology, usage of technology is concerned. But having said that, the fact of the matter is that today you cannot live without technology until unless you want to live in the 18th century. Even when I go back to my own village, which is way almost 1,500 kilometers from here in a remote part of Bihar. But the fact is that their people are working on internet. They know exactly when the rains are expected because they go through the weather reports. They know, okay, this is going to be a heat wave period. That's the kind of thing, that's the kind of awareness that technology has brought into people at remote centers, isn't it? And of course, the Swiss Re developed an AI-powered underwriting platform, and almost 60% of their underwriting time was saved. This is what we call usage of design thinking. The same is true for Allianz. The three examples that I have been giving you pertain to AXA, Swiss Re, Allianz, because they are the giants in the global insurance market. So Allianz was trying to simplify health insurance, and they have this. The challenge was that making health insurance more understandable and user friendly for its customers. The approach again, and remember the process that we have for design thinking: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5 kind of thing. They used the same process. They used design thinking to redesign their health insurance processes and communications. They started by deeply understanding the pain points of their customers through interviews and empathy maps. Now, you notice that one of the specific points that has been floating across all these issues is the fact that the pain points of the customers. Why? Because at the end of the day, we are here for the customer, the client. The customer is the king, as they said it. And if you and I have to be here, and when I say we have to be here, I mean, yes, we have to be here. We must understand the pain points of the customers. And that is exactly what all these giants were working on. They came out with a solution, which was a simplified health insurance policy with clear and straightforward language. They also developed a mobile app. And of course, this redesign led to a significant increase in customer satisfaction, reduced call center inquiries, and faster processing times. All these organizations, do you think, can they work in isolation? No, they cannot. They have to have people wherein feedback comes into the picture. Somebody would be coming back, giving them their inputs, and then they were able to use the design thinking. Now, coming back more to the Indian scenario, we have our own group of insurers here. And this specific example is from ICICI Lombard, wherein they built a customer-centric mobile app. So the challenge that they had was that they wanted to improve customer engagement and satisfaction through digital channels. Now, I think, I mean, of course, and I stand to correction. I believe that out of the 1.4 or 1.5 billion people that we have in our country, I assume that at least 1 billion must be using some sort of technology, either through mobile or a laptop or a desktop. I'm sure they would be having access to that. Now, if that is the situation, and more so the new generation, I don't know what do we call them these days? Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Y, whatever it is, the new generation. Let me put it that way. I mean, it'll be much better because both my sons say that I'm outdated. But the fact of the matter is that when we talk about the new generation, they are more into usage of technology, particularly when it comes to mobile apps or a laptop or a program like this. So Lombard was going with the tide, and they wanted to have a customer-centric mobile app to improve customer engagement and satisfaction. And what did they do? Typical design thinking to revamp their model app with extensive customer research to understand the pain points and then of course conducted interviews, surveys, and usability testing to gather insights. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. They came out with a solution, and the team redesigned the app to be more intuitive and user friendly, incorporating features such as easy policy access, one click renewal, and hassle free claim submission. Now, honestly speaking, and typically, I would love to have an app like this. And of course, I'm technologically challenged. So if I am technologically challenged and I love to have an app like this, imagine the situation of people who are technologically savvy. They would be happy about it. And of course, typically, this app also included a chat bot because today is the era of chat bots, when most of us are interacting with the insurance companies, when we call up their call centers, you will have a chat bot responding to your queries as such. And what was the impact? That's the more important point. That this revamped app led to a significant increase in user engagement and satisfaction. Those people who used to say that I would need a new pair of shoes to approach you for my claim settlement, they don't even have to move out of their homes for this. It's been taken care of. HDFC Argo. You see, I could have stopped with the case studies of the insurers across the globe. But when I talk about an ICICI Lombard or an HDFC Argo, you would be more aware of the functioning of these companies, because then you can identify with these companies and processes. Almost each one of us has a policy either for a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler or a home or an office or a workshop, something like that. When you're traveling by train, you have a personal accident policy as well. So it is easy for you to identify with them. And therefore, the second case in the Indian context is about HDFC Argo. Streamlined claims process. If you remember, whether it is talking more about engaging people, customers, or streamlining of claims process, the key figure, the center of all these things is the customer, the individual, the client. People pointing, that's how it is. So therefore, when we say the challenge was to improve the efficiency and customer satisfaction of their claims, which was seen as lengthy and complex. It's a fact, because what happens is that there are people like you and me working in the insurance companies. They're open to audits and queries and things like this. So they are also scared to somehow skip a process and make payment of the claim. So they will follow the entire, they go the whole hog, and they will ensure that each and every step is followed. For the client, that is a tedious process. It's lengthy and complex. But it's difficult to blame the employees as such. So as a result of which, the entire claims process needs to be streamlined, and that is what these people also did. They used design thinking workshops to map out the entire claims journey from the customer's perspective, of course, and they involved various stakeholders, including customers, agents, claim adjusters, to identify the key pain points and areas for improvement. The solution came in the form of a simplified and digitized claims process, user-friendly portals, automated status updates, and of course, quicker settlements. Now, the impact was that there was a significant reduction in settlement of claims. The time was reduced. Of course, this led to higher customer satisfaction. This is just one of the two examples that local I gave. The third, Bajaj Allianz, Magic as we call it, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance and Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance Company. They wanted to offer personalized insurance solutions. And of course, I'm sure you are aware of this, that there are at least two policies that I am aware of, which they have come out as part of the design thinking process. One was the personal liability cover when it came to cyber crimes. And the second was that they came out with that surety bonds, when the government had agreed. And we at BIMTech were lucky that the day the surety bonds were launched, we had the entire Magic team interacting with our students on the concept of surety bonds. That again, like I said, and Rakesh, you would agree, last time also we were having a discussion, and that is one area that we also need to engage people and have a discussion on surety bonds, of course. However, coming to more important things, that Bajik or Bajaj Allianz, they wanted personalized insurance solutions, and of course, they often to cater to the diverse needs. Same approach, design thinking. Bajaj Allianz conducted an in-depth customer research, including interviews and focus groups, to understand different customer segments and their specific needs. Customer feedback, behavior data. Solution came out in the form of a customizable insurance product. So it's not that Bajaj Allianz was the first one to come out with it. There were private sector insurance companies who had personalized insurance products, in the sense that it was more like a across the counter sales, pre-underwritten products kind of situation was there. However, there also certain changes, certain modifications were required. These people, they came out with, okay, fine, you tell me. Okay, so Mr. So and so, what is your need? ABC. Fine, we give you ABC. Now, little does that gentleman know that had he asked for EFG, he would have got EFG also. Why? Because the product was so customized that anybody's requirement could have been taken care of in that situation. But I came back happy. Why? Because I wanted ABC and they gave me ABC. That is the beauty of the entire process that design thinking uses. And of course, what was the impact? The personalized approach resulted in higher customer satisfaction and increased sales. Customers appreciated the flexibility and ease of customization, which helped Bajaj Allianz attract a broader customer base and improve overall market competitiveness. I mean, at the end of the day, any organization would want this as a result, and that is what they have. This is another example of SBI Life Insurance, customer engagement through digital tools. Actually, primarily the reason why I put in here is that the previous three examples catered to the non-life insurance, and I did not want to deprive the people who are working with life insurance companies. There is a probability and usage of design thinking even in life insurance, and that is why I've given this example, so that the SBI Life Insurance wanted to enhance customer engagement, provide better services through digital tools. I've already talked about the AI-driven chatbots that are there for 24/7 customer support. That is the way it is. In fact, you'll be surprised to note that as part of a paper on insured tech that we teach our students at BIMTech, we have this provision that we encourage students to build chatbots, and that is the way we sort of introduce them to the world of insurtech, and of course, maybe going forward, design thinking into developing a better understanding for customer needs and preferences. So they had this challenge. They approached the entire thing through design thinking, developing a deep understanding and mapping, journey mapping, and all that stuff. Solution was there, and of course, the digital tools led to a significant increase in customer engagement, with more customers using the app and portal for their uh, insurance needs. The 24/7 support improved customer rating size. I mean, what does a client-based organization want? Highest ranking from customers, good feedback, and that is how these people have got it. Why is it not working? Oh yes, there it is. Having said that, by this time you'd be having an impression that design thinking is a panacea. It's a solution to any and every problem that a corporate world faces. No, that is not true. There are limitations of design thinking also, because like a normal individual, I have my own limitations. I must sleep for 8 hours in the night, or else next morning I'll be groggy. Similarly, the design thinking is a very powerful approach. There's no doubt about it. And we have established it during the last 20 odd slides, that this is the best and most powerful approach for solving complex problems. And of course, we have been generating innovative solutions. But the fact of the matter is that there are some limitations. The most important one, and I'm sure most of you all are aware of this concept of learning, unlearning, and relearning. So, for instance, people like me who came in from the government sector and joined the private sector and then got out of it. So we learned a lot of things in the government sector, and when I came to the private sector, I had to unlearn all those things. Why? Oh, sorry, sarkari style nahi chalne ka. This is gone. Think of the past. So I learned the new tricks of the trade in the private sector. And then, because I had learned, then unlearned, and then relearned. Now, this is a time consuming and resource intensive process. I had to put in almost 6 months for that. Now, 6 months of benefits being given to me by the organization, 6 months of salary, 6 months of time. It's a huge time consuming and resource intensive process. It requires significant investment in research, prototyping, and iteration. Now, not every organization would be in a position to do it. I am not very sure whether, but I think Bajaj Allianz was one of the earlier ones when they started off uh, when they started off with the entire process of learning, unlearning, and relearning kind of thing. But organizations with limited time or resources may find it challenging to fully embrace design thinking. That's, of course, the second limitation that I've jotted down is the fact that it requires organizations to rethink their approach to problem solving. I mean, an organization, now let's say, one of the giants of the industry, Tata's for that matter, Birlas, or even Wadias. Now, these organizations, they have a culture, they value tradition and stability. They go back a long way into history, and of course, they were a part of the freedom struggle as such. But the fact of the matter is that it is difficult for such organizations to have a culture of so much of change as compared to valuing tradition and stability. They would go with tradition and stability rather than go immediately into an innovation wherein they do not know that the risk taking part is there. So this limitation is there also. This is an important one because design thinking relies heavily on data and insights from users and stakeholders, which may be limited or difficult to obtain in some contexts. Now, the best example that comes to my mind is the exit polls that we saw at this time. Each and every channel attributed a certain percentage of votes, a certain amount of seats to the ruling dispensation, which did not come out true. That was one of the biggest challenges of relying heavily on data and insights. The same may be true for design thinking. And of course, concept of human bias and subjectivity, because design thinking is a human-centered approach. Now, there are certain people who may not like to eat non-vegetarian food. Now, if that is so, and someone suggests a non-vegetarian food, the cell simply says, sorry, no, it's a no-no for me. Because that's a human bias that you have. The fact is that you are human, there will be a human bias, and of course, subjectivity. Last but not the least, which is more true for people now moving into a new generation, people going beyond 60s, is that a lot of resistance to change. Some stakeholders may resist change, and we say that this is one of the problems that the aged, the senior people have, because they would like to maintain status quo. What if your organization is headed by someone who is in his 60s? He may not be in sync with the developments of the market, and he might prefer to continue with what is happening there, maintaining stability. Resistance to change. Now, these are some of the factors that actually prove that we are still human beings. Why? Because otherwise things should have been automated to such an extent that each one of us would have become a robot. So these factors are there when it says that, look, this is the point wherein you end. Sorry, not every solution can be given through design thinking. That's, of course, these are certain areas where we still use design thinking, and healthcare, human resources, startups, retail. These are some of the other areas I'm talking about, other than insurance, that we have. Now, before I go any further, can I request Rakesh ji? Sir, this is what I have for my presentation. If there are any questions that you or others have, then I'll be happy to respond to that.
Thank you, Pratik ji, for an excellent session. I think you have given a lot of food for thought, what innovative concept we can implement in insurance. So if anybody wants to ask any question, they can unmute themselves and they can ask now. Just to start, Prateek ji, I think if we want to enhance this concept of design thinking, should we invest more on research and development? Because it would be important to understand, say, as we are following user customer centered approach or innovative approach, so we need to find out what are the user preferences, customer preferences. And I think more sort of research and survey would help in if we get more data about customers, it will help design thinking to develop new models. So,
Sir, there are 2 points involved here, sir. One
hmm,
is the fact that, and I'm sure you would have noticed it also, that most of these companies, particularly the insurance companies, they have a research and development wing being formed now, or they have a learning and development section there, sir. The idea is that not only for their own employees, but also for the innovations that they would be thinking about. Like I said, there could be a limitation of resources, both for from the human perspective also, sir, and also from the perspective of money. Having said that, I think the current dispensation that we're talking about deals more with investment into human resources, particularly for betterment of learning and research. So yes, you are right, because if that is what it is, then we are going to heavily rely on data, and that too robust data, not just plain and simple data. I think this is the investment that we should be thinking about as and when we go forward, sir.
fine.
I think we have a question from Yukti here, sir.
Hi, hello. I just wanted to ask, like, how insurance companies can choose the best way. Like there are a lot of different methodologies. Like they can choose agile, they can choose Scrum, or they can choose even a combination of both. So, what would you suggest would be the best for them? Like design thinking, or even like a combination of design thinking, agile, and some of these approaches.
Actually, Yukti, it's a relevant question that you put it up at the right time, I guess. You see, the fact of the matter is that today, most of the insurance company, and why do I say most? All of the insurance companies, they are based on the perceptions of the customer and the clients. We all know how perceptions are made, broken, and modified, things like this. So there is a certain set standard wherein the insurance company is functioning. They want a certain level of profitability. They want a certain level of customer satisfaction. They also want a certain level of employee satisfaction. So these are certain standards already set by these insurance companies. Having said that, there could be a situation where now, let's say, to 2006, when the floods came to Mumbai, Reliance General Insurance was faced with a Hobson's choice whether or not to pay claims to motor policies wherein the engine cover was not there. Now, typically, motor insurance was when we were there in the public sector. Motor insurance covered all these losses. With the coming of private sector, they bifurcated it into an engine cover and normal cover, all that stuff. But what I was trying to tell you is that Reliance General Insurance went ahead and made the payment for all those claims. When it was a case of 2611 in Mumbai, IFCO Tokyo paid all the claims of personal accident, even though it did not cover terrorism losses. The reason why I'm saying is that each and every insurance company could have a different situation when it actually comes to dealing with either customers or clients or the regulatory framework. So I'm not sure as to if we could have a single solution kind of thing for all these various challenges or problems. But like you rightly mentioned, it could be a combination of a number of different ways. Uh, but honestly, Yukti, I'm happy that you've raised this question because uh, even after this, if there are some people here who can actually work on this, it will go a long way in creating a better atmosphere for the insurance companies. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah. So I was just telling the objective of this webinar is not to just have a one-way session. The objective is to have to engage people and interact. if we get a number of ideas from people, we can build on that. We can suggest to companies. We can suggest to companies so that they can develop this. And I think in last few years, if you have noticed, number of insurtech companies have came. So now I think almost their product offering is same. So to outdo one each another, I think this design thinking they would be focusing more upon, because this might help in introducing some new innovative product which other is not having. Otherwise, you will be having some same products offered by different companies. So old wine in new basket sort of thing. So I think this concept can help in designing new things in a new way, maybe.
Sir, you're absolutely correct. You see, what happens is that the uh, the basic premise on which any organization works, any, and when I say any, I mean it could be an insurance company, it could be an FMCG goods, is the fact that the customer is the king. If the needs of the customer are not fulfilled, none of the organizations would survive. And from that perspective, I think almost 90 years back, or maybe 85 years back, Mahatma Gandhi was absolutely correct when he said that the customer is the king. Now, you see, so in a situation like this, everyone is competing against one another. And the usage of technology started almost about 12, 15 years back in our country. And when I say usage of technology started 15, 20 years back, I mean to actually reach the masses. Of course, technology was being used by us long time back also. But for a mass uh, contact basis kind of a thing, the CRM kind of a software that we have, we started almost around 2010 or maybe 2009. So that was the time when the organizations which were slightly better off, in the sense that they had a good feedback from their customers, good feedback from their employees, they were not short of cash. They could bring in a lot of changes. Um, when this concept of HR, human resources, came into being, prior to that, the entire this department was referred to as personnel and industrial relations, P&IR. So by simply giving a different nomenclature, people thought things would change. It did not. Now, that was a mistake that happened almost 30, 35 years back, or maybe more than that. But the fact remains that this time, when people started using technology to sort of broad base their client base, this mistake was not done. They knew and they learned from the mistakes, and therefore, different organizations use different methodology. One could have been that simply you increase the number of offices. One could have been simply by adding more people to their team. In fact, one of the private sector organizations started hiring to such an extent that today almost each and every insurance company, at the top level at least, has someone from that organization. That's the kind of thing it happened. So yes, you're right that when we talk about different organizations coming out with different methods of competition modalities, the net result is the same. They would also like to not only have the same share of the pie, probably increase it. But that is where the insurance penetration comes into the picture, sir. Because if I were to go into uncharted areas, I would be in a better position to increase the not only the penetration, but my own revenues that I would get. So that is slightly a difficult situation, because
and I think for this increasing insurance penetration, we need to focus little more on the surveys, because more you reach out to people, or people who are uninsured, to know their problem, to know their understanding of insurance, or to educate and make them aware. So maybe some sort of product awareness can also be built in those in the concept, so that penetration can be increased.
I agree with you, sir. I'm in sync with you. The fact is that the more we interact with our people, the better informed we are. And interaction is the key to all these developments.
So anybody else has any question, he can unmute and ask.
Yeah, good evening. This side Mrityunjay. I have a question to sir. In insurance, a lot of R&D research and developments are happening with respect to design thinking and all into the products and all. So where we see when we compare with the European Union and UK like things like liability insurance and all those, where we are not stand anywhere when we compare in respect with the penetration of the insurance. So why the design thinking is not paving the way to incorporate such things into India, even after the liberalization of insurance since 2000?
Right. Thank you, Mrityunjay. In fact, you touched upon three basic points. One was the penetration. Second was the usage of design thinking internationally. And third was the liability insurance per se. If you would have noticed when it came to a comparison with the global markets, I've given you case studies for the globe as also a comparison with the Indian markets. But yes, you are right. There's one specific point on which I have refrained, and not only me, the insurance companies are also not very happy about it, is the fact of liability insurance. You see, there are 2-3 points. First and foremost is that liability insurance and the claims in liability insurance are what we call long-tailed. When we say long-tailed, for instance, are you aware that this particular claim, Satyam claim, had come to fore in 2008-9, and it's almost 15 years since that claim was reported. We have not paid the claims as yet. It's a fact that almost 600 crores of legal fees have already been paid to legal consultants, but the claim is yet to be discussed. So, I mean, a liability claim extending for almost 15, 20, 30 years is going to be a nightmare for insurance companies. That's point number one. Number two, it is very expensive. Particularly, I do not know whether you are aware of this fact or not, but if you are traveling to anywhere in Americas or Canada, the insurance premium rate for a travel insurance increases. Why? Because they are the most litigant nations that we have. At the drop of the hat, they will sue you. In India, we do not know this suing culture. We have had cases where I think it was Subramaniam Swamy who had sued somebody else. I don't remember the name now. Ram Jethmalani or somebody. But the fact remains that the legal systems that we have today in India do not support the liability claims. I was told almost 6-7 years back, when the second term of the present government was there, that they had formed a committee to look into the legal aspects of liability. You know, I'll give you a very small, significant example. If your neighbor comes and hits you, he actually hits you with a stick, and you start bleeding, you know, आपका सर फट जाता है और चीजें होती हैं. The section that could be under the IPC would be grievous hurt and injury, maybe even going to the extent of saying keep, you know, attempt to murder. What if your neighbor's dog comes and mauls you? He bites you again. What would be the section used? Grievous injury and hurt. Because we do not have a separate section for claims coming under this section for liability insurance. So that is the limitation that we have, because our the entire liability insurance is based on the concept of English law, English common law, which we are still following. There have been changes in the IPC, Indian Penal Code, and all of us are aware of it. But the fact remains that probably this would also have to undergo a change. So you're quite right. That is a very challenge that we have. It's a flaw and a lacuna that we have. But the fact of the matter is that most of our liability claims are limited to our country, wherein the liability claims are reported outside. People prefer to get it settled out of court so that, number one, that number of years of litigation is reduced, and number two, it is done ASAP, because this is a very expensive process.
We have one more question from Hova Datta. What is the difference between design thinking and agile methodologies?
Mahua, I actually, honestly speaking, do not know much about agile technologies, you know, but the fact of the matter is that, like we were having a discussion with Yukti also, there are n number of methodologies, the modalities of working on it. Now, for instance, if I am cooking at my home, I could use an induction stove. I could use a piped natural gas, or I could even use a cylinder. Maybe had it been back home about 50 years back, wood and cow dung cakes were being used. What was the net result? Food was there. You see, if I go into further details, we can always argue that the taste of the food was different, the simmering time was different, or the usage of certain vegetables could prolong the thing. A number of those things could be there. At the net, at the end of the day, any organization which is in the service sector worth its salt would want two things. One, absolutely employee satisfaction, and number two, profitability. That is what it is. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't have much information about the point that you raised, but I think if that is what it is, then they both of them contribute to the same thing. It's different ways of reaching the same goal. Okay, let me be slightly philosophic. When I say this, there are various ways of approaching the God. So maybe that is what it is. I hope.
और एक लावारिस लाश को उठाकर वहां से अस्पताल ले गए.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think.
Vivek, I didn't get it. Bawa, I hope I've contributed some part to your query.
Actually, in India, till last many years, we were accustomed, customers were accustomed to get a standardized product, whatever insurance company offered. Now, I think since competition is increasing so fast, everyone is thinking of doing something new or innovative. So in that way, design thinking should develop and help in reaching to customers and understanding their preferences, what they think, and what can be the best thing, how they can reach them, and maybe in some like bite-size insurance, or that depends. And this competition may have helped in this promoting design thinking.
True, sir, you're absolutely correct. Like I said in my initial slides, there is always an element of risk involved there. You see, the data on which I was working, or the feedback that I received. I'll tell you a small example. When I was heading underwriting in one of the private sector companies, there was one state which was giving me losses as far as individual mediclaim policies were concerned. So I went to that particular state, spent 3 days time there. I met the different stakeholders, including intermediaries, brokers, and others, of course. And I wanted to understand as to why is it that year on year, in spite of best underwriting, in spite of no mis-selling, we were making losses. And finally, the response and the answer came from a small time agent who was just handling about a revenue of 5,000 rupees at that time. I mean, he was there accidentally, and I just casually asked him, I said, why don't you add something to it? He said, sir, what is there to add? We belong to a state where anything that we invest must have a return. And that is what we are doing. The insurance premium that we pay as investment, we get a return out of it, and therefore you will always have losses here. As a matter of fact, that was the point. But none of us could actually get to it because the kind of information that we were getting from the other parts of the country was different. So what happens is that the data on which we base our judgment, our opinion, and we go ahead with the process of design thinking, interacting with people, bringing about changes, bringing in new products, may not work. I'm sure, sir, you are aware of this fact that in 1989, United India came out with a product called Cradle Care Insurance.
Yes.
Now, Cradle Care Insurance was basically a policy for the unborn child. So the moment a lady conceived, she could take a policy, and that policy was short period policy, maximum 9 months, because 9 months was the gestation period as such. So that particular child, if he was born with deformities, a lump sum amount of 1 lakh, 2 lakh, or 3 lakh, whatever it was paid to the parents so that those deformities could be taken care of. That was the time when most of these cases had come with two major challenges. One was cleft lip, there was a cut on the lip, and second is to be hole in the heart. So this insurance policy was there in the market. Unfortunately, sir, this policy did not sell. One of the best policies that I am aware of till date, but this policy did not sell. And do you know why, sir? Imagine a situation where a family is celebrating the arrival of a new one, and you go in as a salesman and say, look, I have an insurance policy. If your child is born with a deformity, Do you think you can complete that sentence there? No way.
We'll
The
get
people
a
would
thrashing.
exactly the people would thrash you out because in a situation like that, nobody wanted to hear anything adverse. That was the biggest challenge. So this policy was shut down in 2014, even though, sir, it was one of the best policies available in the market. So many a times it happens that you might bring in innovations, you might bring in changes, but that may not be acceptable. Why? Because the data based on which we had come out with it was not very good. And unfortunately, this particular policy, and I still feel that it is one of the best policies that was ever made by an insurance company, basically to meet the requirements of an issue like this. But sir, that is how life is.
Yeah. So anybody else has any question? So very soon we are coming close to the session. So if anybody has any question, and if anybody likes to add anything, they can send us an email. So we'd like to work more upon it. And as we said, we are relaunching our portal Bima Bazaar. So we'd be happy to discuss all these issues on the portal itself. So what best can be done for the industry. So since last few years there has been a lot of development. So in what way we can contribute to the development of the industry? So I think we don't have any. Is there any question in chat box? No. So I think we are done with the questions. So thank you, Pratik ji, for the excellent session and giving us food for thought. What can be best done in design thinking? And I think BIMTech is already implementing design thinking in their curriculum also.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think this will help our future students also to learn and understand and implement in their organization. And we request everyone to share your feedback through email, through our website, bimabazaar.com. And we'd be happy to interact and discuss issues like this. So thanks all participants for joining in, sparing your valuable time. And we shall again come back with some new session. Maybe we are planning a session on around 29th or 30th of June on maybe on some fraud. So, and in July, we are looking for a session on fire safety. So you can keep in touch with us through our website or our YouTube channel. So thank you all participants for joining in. Thank you, Pratik ji, for the excellent session. We look forward to have more session from you.
Thank you very much, sir. It was an honor and privilege to be here, and grateful that the participants gave me a patient hearing. Thank you very much, sir.
No, it was very innovative and interesting.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.